Let's move to START. Andrea, what's the likelihood of the START treaty passing before the end of the year?
I think it's more likely than not, but as I was saying earlier, there's still a few Republicans shy of the 67 that they need.
Now,
they'll get closer today.
Even if they get Scott Brown and, let's say, Bob Corker, they'll still be short? Yes, they'll still be
perhaps too short of what they need. They may only need 66 if Ron Wyden is not able to vote, because it's a two-thirds vote. But the bottom line is that if they don't get it now, they won't get it. You cannot go back, renegotiate, bring it back with fewer Democrats in the Senate. It's now or never for START, too. So you've got to decide, rather for New START, you've got to decide whether this treaty is value-added. I think it is in terms of the relationship with the Russians and in terms of getting inspectors back on the ground. But I would defer to Dr. Brzezinski.
No, I agree with you, although I wouldn't pump up this treaty too much. My view is it's a desirable treaty. It regularizes the relationship. It stabilizes it. It somewhat reduces the level of nuclear arms on both sides. But it's not a dramatic breakthrough to a grand new future. But it's much better than nothing. And I think on that level, it's probably easier to sell it.
And it's better than having the United States be perceived in Russia and elsewhere as a country where the leader cannot negotiate a treaty in good faith and then get it ratified.
Yeah. Some people make the argument that it jeopardizes the missile defense shield.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. And besides, that depends on whether the president really wants it. Even if the treaty goes through,
right,
allegedly he can do it, he can still not do it. Right. And if he wants to do it, he can do it, because there's enough ambiguity in it.
So talk about how this affects our relationship with Russia. If we don't pass the treaty, who is emboldened in Russia? If we do pass the treaty, who gains the upper hand?
I think the costs of not passing the treaty would be even higher elsewhere in world public opinion, in major parts of Europe. But it would, of course, help somewhat Putin in Russia and somewhat undercut Medvedev in Russia. And I think I know which one of the two I prefer. I think more and more Russians are becoming interested in what Medvedev has to offer.
Really?
But it's not in our interest to push Russians into the hands of Putin, because his vision of the future, I think, is rather stark and somewhat dangerous.
So do you think that the two are not inseparable?
I think the two are like Siamese cats. And Siamese cats are not joined at the hip.
Perhaps not. So what do you make of the other Republican complaints against the treaty?
Well, the fact that it interferes with the Christmas holiday, for example.
Yeah, that's a strong one, right? So, Mike, do you think at the end of the day the treaty gets passed?
I don't know. I have no idea. I would defer to Andrea on the head count in the Senate. What I find interesting about the treaty is that as the reportage of the treaty has expanded over the last 10 days, it is somewhat shocking, I think, to a lot of Americans who pay attention to it that, A, this is not a treaty that was thrown on the table 2 weeks ago. It's been out there for 8 months. It's already been signed. And it leads one to believe that all of this action in the last 2 or 3 weeks in the special session of the Congress, maybe we should have the Congress telescoped into a month-long session. They've got more done. There's been more action on more different fronts in 3 weeks than there has been in 2 years in this Congress.
Right. Well, you've actually got both sides working together, except yesterday, Mika, there was a little back and forth on the Senate floor.
Yes, Mitch McConnell, I believe, took the lead on this. Chris, why don't you take, if this is on, and this is with John Kerry. Yeah. Take a listen.
Our top concern should be the safety and security of our nation, not some politician's desire to declare a political victory and host a press conference before the first of the year. Americans have had more than enough of artificial timelines set by politicians eager for attention. They want us to focus on their concerns, not ours, never more so than on matters of national security.
I would say to my friend from Kentucky that just because you say something doesn't make it true. And our friends on the other side of the aisle seem to have a habit of repeating things that have been completely refuted by every fact that there is. The facts are that this treaty is not being rushed. This treaty was delayed at the request of Republicans.
So, well, first of all, Dad, we had Mark on recently, and he was saying that most members of senators have had this for 16 months or for 9 months. They've had this treaty for many, many months. The bulk of it is about 16 pages long. And I ask you, Joe, haven't the Republicans gotten a lot of what they wanted? I don't understand why they're being so difficult.
I think at the end of the day it passes. John Kyle expressed some concerns about modernization of our nuclear arsenal. President Obama yielded to him on that point. Missile defense. The president, as you said, Andrea, has written a letter. I think Democrats have taken away most reasons for Republicans to object to this. And yet yesterday, the top Republican in the Senate suggested that this treaty might make America less safe.
What are the ramifications?
Worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that this treaty could do for security?
Well, first of all, I think it shows that we can't conduct a rational foreign policy. That's pretty damaging.
You mean if we defeat it?
If we defeat it.
If we defeated it. We negotiate for months. We negotiated. The Republicans know about it. And in the end, if it's defeated, it shows we can't do things.
They held 18 hearings.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of absurd. It's kind of embarrassing.
It's
beyond that, do we really want a nuclear race with the Russians and the others at this time? Now, presumably we would win it, but we have some other problems in our agenda, including we're a little short on cash.
Yes, we are.
So do we want another arms race?
What does it do, you alluded to this earlier, to enhance Putin's position in Russia, and you indicated it was kind of dangerous to give him more power than he already has now. How so?
Well, first of all, it undercuts an agreement jointly negotiated, which we are confident is in our national interest, but then we refuse to go ahead because we have some other agenda which is being articulated by gentlemen like the one we just heard. So that raises the question in the minds of many Russians. So what is this all about? Is this an attempt by the United States to impose its will in Russia that helps nationalists like Putin? Because Putin is basically a former communist turned intense nationalist. And he appeals to the idea that Russia should be a superpower, that Russia should compete with the United States, that ultimately these are the two nuclear powers that dominate global power. And that plays into his hands.
So defeating it would play into Putin's hand and weaken Medvedev, who negotiated it with President Obama.
In effect.